Today we're going to be talking about glossing classifiers. First, let's quickly review how to use a classifier because that's going to be really important in how we gloss it. So I want to make sure you have the fundamentals here. There are 4 steps. First off, we need to establish what a classifier represents. It's just a hand shape floating in the air until we know what it means, right? It's only a 3 until we say my cousin's Mustang. It's just an upside down 2 until we say Uncle Charlie, right? Whatever, we need to establish what the classifier represents before it will mean anything. So we do that first. Then we choose the appropriate hand shape. Yes, an upside down 2 would be a great hand shape for Uncle Charlie. A 3 would be a great hand shape for my cousin Charlie. But we can't switch those because unless Uncle Charlie has like a random third arm sticking out somewhere, he doesn't look like a 3. So that would not be the appropriate hand shape. There are rules. That's part of the arbitrary part of classifiers, in that there are rules and certain things can only be represented with specific hand shapes. Then, now that we know what it is and we've picked a symbol for it, we're going to use space to show locations and actions. Where does Uncle Charlie go? Where is he standing? Where is the Mustang? All of those things, we can show that with our classifiers. And then the last step, and this is the one that often gets neglected but is really important, we need to follow the movement of whatever's going on with our eye gaze, and we need to use matching facial expressions. If there's something going on, again, we're showing and not telling, so we need to make sure our facial expressions show what's happening in the story. And they can fill in a lot of information just with our eyebrows, with our face. All right, just a real quick recap. Here are some common classifier hand shapes, right? 1 can be used for long, thin objects like people or a pencil. A 2, or there it's represented with the caret, can be used for eyes or legs, like I talked about. If Uncle Charlie is standing somewhere, that 2 would represent where he's standing. 3, wheeled vehicles, my cousin's Mustang. 5 is a large group of objects. Sometimes it's a 4, sometimes it's a 5, just depending on if your thumb's in the way. Honestly, that's the only difference. So like a big crowd of people or stars on a flag. B can be a flat surface. It can be a tabletop. It can be a whiteboard. It can be all sorts of things. The surface on top of a table. C is used for cylindrical objects, like where a drinking glass is located. F, this is a really specific one, small, flat, round objects. So the examples here, coins, buttons, polka dots. The sign for watch comes from that classifier as well, because the surface of your watch is small, round, and flat. Bent V is used for people sitting or for chairs, and for animals. So like a horse running, a bug crawling, puppies frolicking around. All of that is represented with a bent V. And the I love you hand shape can become an airplane very quickly. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just the list offered in the Master ASL textbook, but there are plenty others. However, this is a good place to start. All right, now we're going to talk about how to gloss a sentence. Now first, here's the sentence we're going to use today. When I burped, Mom gave me a look. All right. If we signed that word for word, it's going to become very creepy, because if it says, Mom gave me a look, this might be what your viewer thinks about, right? Mom didn't give you anything, right? It's not like she handed you her eyeball and said, ew, right? That's an expression that we use in English. She gave me a look, but it doesn't mean that she actually handed something to me. So, and you know what I'm talking about. When I was a child, all my mom had to do to shut me up was give me the look. So does anybody else remember the look? That's what I'm talking about here. That look. Okay, so now let's talk about how to gloss that sentence. In this sentence, we're going to take care of the time first. Before we get to our classifier, we got to talk about time. And we usually think about time as something like last week or yesterday or, when dinosaurs roamed the earth. But time can be something crazy like when I burped. Okay, that can be time. And so here's what the sign burp looks like, in case you're curious. And by the way, we're not going to sign the word when we do that. We only use the sign when we're talking about question words. But in this case, there's a non-manual signal that tells us we're talking about time. All right, so our time is I burped. And the when clause, to make sure that it shows that it's time and not me just randomly, relieving gas in my esophagus, I can raise my eyebrows and sort of lean forward. So when I burped, that's what shows it as time. Okay, so there's our time glossed out. And here's what that looks like signed. All right, now we're going to move on with our sentence. Mom gave me a look. So mom is going to be our classifier, or mom's look actually is going to be our classifier. So we need to write our establishing sign. Who's doing the action? Who are we classifying? Mom. Okay, so the sign mom there. Now we're going to label that we're using a classifier. In our gloss, we're actually going to put an announcement. I'm using a classifier. And we do that by writing CL and then a colon. And then after the colon, we're going to show what hand shape we use. So in this case, mom gave me a look. So that's a 2, right? So that's going to be her eyeballs staring at me. Okay. So that's our next step, right? First step, establish what it is. Second, choose the correct hand shape. But when you gloss, there's one more step in that when you choose the correct hand shape, and that's label it as a classifier. So that's what the CL goes with there. All right, now we're going to describe the action. So we have mom's eyeballs set up. Now they need to do something, right? So this isn't actually a sign. We're just showing what we're doing, right? We're not telling what happened. We're showing what we're doing. So to describe that, mom looked at me, right? She turned her eyes and looked at me. But, and here's where that fourth step is really important. She didn't just look at me, right? She gave me the look. So we need to add the appropriate non-manual signals to say that her look means she did not approve of my behavior. Burping in public like that. Who do I think I am? Right? So as she looks at me, she's going to kind of glare at me like, are you kidding me right now? That was gross. Okay? So mom looked at me with a glare in her eyes. Right? There it is again, in case you forgot. That's the look. Okay? So just like you have to do it when you sign it, when you gloss it, glossing is just writing down what you sign. So you need all 4 of these steps in your gloss as well. Okay, so if you have the sentence, I tiptoed past the door, right? You have to set up the door first. That's step 1. Then you choose the appropriate hand shape, which would be I'm using a classifier, CL colon, and then you use the right hand shape. In this case, it would be a B because a door is a flat surface. Okay, and then in that case, we're using space to show locations and actions. This one shows the location, where the door is. Now this one's really vague, okay, because without the rest of the story, we don't know exactly where the door is in context with everything else. It doesn't really matter. We just show where the door is, all right? And then that one, this one, because you're just saying this is a location, doesn't have a lot of need for matching facial expressions. It's not this very dramatic, the door is here, right? It's just, here's the door. But you might look at the door when you sign it because that's the eye gaze part. So I tiptoed past the door. That first classifier there was the door. If we're talking about tiptoeing past it, that's a whole other classifier that's in this sentence. So we're going to start over and I'm going to tiptoe past the door. We don't have a sign for that. We can't tell you what we're doing, but I can show you what tiptoeing looks like. So that's what we're going to do here. So establish what the classifier represents. It's me. Choose the appropriate hand shape. It's going to be that 2 again because it's showing my legs. Then I'm going to use space to show locations and actions, and I'm going to say I tiptoed past the door, right? Because that's the point. We need to have the door still there so I can tiptoe past it. And then I didn't just walk past it. I have to tiptoe very quietly, and there's this sort of understanding that I'm being sneaky as I tiptoe past the door, right? Maybe I just don't want to wake dad up. Maybe I'm sneaking out of the house, whatever. But for whatever reason I'm tiptoeing, maybe I just don't want to wake the baby. whatever, but I'm trying to be very quiet about it. So I need this sort of sneaky expression on my face that I'm just walking here, but I don't want anybody to notice. All right. So that sentence has two different classifiers that actually interact with each other because I'm walking past the door, but I can gloss them in similar fashion. Now that you have the powerful new tool of classifiers, you now also have a way to record all of these great signs you come up with to reference back to them later. It's also a chance to kind of analyze what's going on. So good luck, have fun with the practice, and happy signing.